much. Welcome to the Peninsula Clean Energy regular board meeting Thursday, May 23rd. Welcome, everyone. I'll go ahead and open the meeting with roll call, please.
When I call your jurisdiction, please state your name. San Mateo County. San Mateo County.
Here.
Okay, we'll go back. Atherton.
Rick DeGolia.
Belmont.
Tom McCune.
Thursday. Pauline Matthews. Burlingame.
Donna Colson.
Homa. Daly City.
Rod Maxwell.
East Palo Alto.
Carlos Romero.
Foster City. Half Moon Bay. Hillsborough. California. Rock Mountain Park. Millbrae.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pacifica. Portola Valley.
Jeff Officer.
Redwood City.
Hiya, Aiken.
San Bruno.
Marty,
San Carlos.
Anita Venkatesh.
San Mateo.
Oran.
San Francisco. I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, right. Ramulans. Thank you.
Yeah, we have two San Mateo County. Double that up. All right. We are going to, I don't think do we have any teleconference participation in 8249? Okay. Fantastic. Right. This is the time at which we have public comment. Anyone who would like to make a public comment about something that is not on our regular agenda may do so at this time. Of course, due to the Brown Act, we are not able to respond, but we'll consider it for potentially future discussion. So with that, I'll ask Brianna and Nellie, is there anyone who would like to make public comment on Zoom? Or has sent in an email?
No public.
Okay, anyone in the audience here? Yes, we have one member that would like to speak. Please over to the podium. And you have 3 minutes to go, right? Sure. 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah. I think, is there just one person? Is there more? Sorry? Okay, for 3 minutes.
Okay, well, this is on. There we go, green light. Council members and supervisors, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and thank you to each of you for your service to your communities and to Peninsula Clean Energy. My name is John McKenna, and I'm here to highlight a recent webinar, Code Red for Humanity, Clean Air, Healthy Bay Area, that was held on May 9th. The purpose of the event was to provide local governments with ideas and resources for measures that can be taken to ease the path towards electrification and to prepare for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's pending rule changes for zero emission water heaters and furnaces. Every council member, every county supervisor, and all relevant local government staff throughout the 9 Bay Area counties, over 1,600 individuals in total were invited to this event. Close to 300 individuals registered and nearly 150 attended live. The event was co-sponsored by every Bay Area community choice energy provider, including Peninsula Clean Energy, and Blake Hershaft was one of the many excellent speakers. The event was emceed by Davina Hurt, currently the Air District's board chair, and the keynote speaker was Stanford professor Mark Jacobson, who has dedicated his career to researching both causes of and solutions to our air quality and climate issues. Topics discussed by the local government speakers included a variety of programs that are being implemented around the Bay Area to engage with residents and businesses, develop the electrification workforce, update zoning codes to ease electrification projects, waive permit fees for switching from gas to electric equipment, streamline the permitting process, and to avoid unnecessary panel upgrades. The CCA speakers covered topics ranging from 0% financing to virtual power plant pilot programs to multifamily building electrification programs. If you weren't able to attend, a recording of the event and many other helpful resources can be found at Actera's website at actera.org/advocacy/code-red. I encourage you all to take advantage of these great resources, and I wanted to spotlight one in particular, a document created by SPUR and their partners in the Bay Area Clean Air Coalition titled "A Toolbox for Transitioning to Zero Pollution Equipment." This simple 8-page document outlines 5 key strategies and 30 different actions that policymakers can take to affordably, equitably, and smoothly transition to zero pollution appliances. I've printed out one copy here to leave with you. I just want to leave you with a quote that Davina gave during the event from Ruha Benjamin. "Remember to imagine and craft the world you can't live without, just as you dismantle the world you can't live within." Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. If there are no other comments from the public, I'll go ahead and close that. No other comments, we'll go ahead and close public comment on this item, on open items. We have an action to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda unless anyone would like to pull an item off the consent calendar or consent agenda. Yes.
I didn't want to pull anything off the. Just wanted to acknowledge, and I'm so glad that we're going to action minutes. Makes your life so much easier. So I'm so happy that we are there now.
Nelly, I hope. Like tables that we designed, this is gonna be the new. So fantastic.
On that note, I just want to add, when the minutes are in the packet, they actually, the links don't work in the packet. So we'll post the draft minutes on the month that they apply to so that you can see them there. So what we did is we have embedded YouTube links in the minutes, so you can actually click and go right to that part of the video.
Excellent.
So yes, just to note it, I'm gonna try to find a workaround for it, but I haven't solved it yet.
Fantastic. Nelly, thank you. Your work, both you and Brianna, the work that you do to get these meetings running smoothly is commendable, and the entire board of directors appreciates it. So with that, is there anyone else who would, okay, Carlos, do you have something? Oh, you know what, I need to open for public comment, just to make sure that if there are any members of the public who would like to remove an item from the agenda, they may do so. Is there anyone here? Okay, anyone online? Okay, so we have no members, so then I'll take a motion by Director Romero and a second by Director Alves. Roll call vote, please.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont, Burlingame,
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough, yes, Los Baños, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica, Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
motion has passed.
Please also call the people focus in case of maybe.
Homa, Foster City, and Woodside.
Motion's passed.
Fantastic. All right, moving to the regular agenda, item 8, that's chair report. The only thing that I have to really report out is in working with Sean and the staff, the C-suite. They had been looking at some executive training courses that were offered through Haas Berkeley Business School. And so through some other work I do over there, we were able to meet with them, talk to them, and they are going to be granting a 30% discount to everything that we want to do, which has been
Really
great. Yeah, no. And they're incredibly excited to work with the CCA community and develop a lot. They're doing a lot of work around equity, fluent leadership and culture and all kinds of important things that we need to be focused on here. So I appreciate the staff taking advantage of that. The only other thing is, had the wonderful opportunity today to meet with a bunch of our high school students who are incredibly interested in talking about, building electrification. And also working with us as a city on how to use some of our allocation of program funds to, say, for example, bring induction cooktops into their kitchen demonstration areas and things like that. So I would just encourage you all, while we're thinking about our cities, not to forget our high schools and middle schools and elementary schools. They may also have some really interesting programs. And I believe our, at the next RICAPS meeting, there's going to be a share out of what all the programs that every city is trying to do with this, so that we can collaborate and kind of cross fertilize and learn from each other. So yeah, that's it for me. Is there any public comment on that item? Great, hearing none. We'll move on to item 9, CEO report.
Next slide, please. Do you guys want me to do this now? Okay. Before I get started, I want to stop and just acknowledge you and say thank you for what Donna, Chair Colson just mentioned. The opportunity that PCE staff has, and we have not actually shared this out with the entire staff yet, because we're working out all of the codes and the details and the things we need to do when people register. But it's an opportunity for our staff to plug in and learn from PAS's executive education program. Everything from equity fluent leadership to change maker, culture, management 101. You know, it runs the gamut. And so, as you know, we have a robust professional development program and budget. We encourage all of our staff to continue their training and development, and we'll be rolling this out here in the coming weeks. So for those of you all back there, let's be looking online and figuring out what classes you want to take. So thank you for that. It's really a great benefit. Okay, so to my report, a couple of recent victories that you've heard some about, but just to wrap it up in a nice bow tonight. The first is that about 2 months ago, Philip Kobernick, who, as you know, is our senior manager of transportation programs, has been tracking all of what's going on. And the California Department of Housing and Community Development issued proposed regulations for the updated building code that would have prevented level 1 charging in any multifamily property that was being renovated. And so obviously he caught this, we flagged it right away, because this would be completely oppositional to a major strategy we have to put affordable level 1 charging, overnight charging in multifamily dwellings. So this was just a masterful example of how he flagged it. We got to work. All of our legislators right away came on board. CalCCA helped lead the charge. We had several other allies. Bottom line is we're now in the 45-day comment period. HCD took our recommended language, and it looks like we survived the chopping block at HCD. So hats off to Philip and the whole team. The next is last night, we had the great news of the San Mateo County Community College District Board of Trustees voted to leave DEAI direct access service and join PCE service starting in July. So it's coming right down the pike. This is another one where, where the relationship with the college district has been ongoing since day one with Kirsten and all the community outreach and the education programs we have and internships and all kinds of things. And there just became an opportunity to think about whether or not we wanted to provide Gov PV to them. This was last year. And so part of that strategy was to say, yes, we want to offer it to them with the opportunity now to open the door so that they might come and we can build our load and they would join our service. And Justin Pine, who's our strategic accounts manager, cultivated that relationship, really nurtured it all year. Last month we presented, and then last night I want to appreciate former Chair DeGolia, Vice Chair Medina, who came and spoke on behalf of PCE, and it was a unanimous vote in favor. So great work by the team. That brings us 14 gigawatt hours of new load. And I will also say, just while we're on the topic, Justin has brought over 40 gigawatt hours from DEAI year to date. That's just in the first 6 months. With Caltrain, that will add up to almost 100 gigawatt hours of new load by the end of the year, with potentially more to come. We're quite competitive with direct access right now. So we're hoping to bring some of the customers that left for DEAI to bring back into our fold. So a lot of work ongoing with that, and it's nice to start out with some good news. All right, really quickly with programs, the member agency energy grants. I would love to encourage all of you to go back to your cities and remind them that we have this money that has been allocated to do electrification or any sustainability type program. So far, we've had proposals from 3 cities, the most recent being South San Francisco. In the buildings area, you all might remember that late last summer, you approved the local government building electrification. That's a grant and loan program. All of the particulars have been worked out on that, and the incentive and financing package has been launched. We're taking proposals through June 28th. Go to our website under local government, you'll see the buttons, the application is there. So please bring that back because you've got a little over a month. EV, we've crossed the great divide of 500 ports installed with about 3,000 in the pipeline, 2/3 of that multifamily housing. The e-bikes program for this year is going to open next month. We have, is it 300,000? Okay, $1,000 each, and so it'll support both rebates and now leasing through Ride Panda for about 300 customers. And then I think you saw in the newsletter that the Millbrae Recreation Center is now live with their solar project. So tip of the hat to programs, they've been super busy and things are happening. Okay, to you, Mark, for a quick update.
I know quick's the operative word, but some interesting things happening in Sacramento. It's a busy time. And lots happened in the 2 weeks since the report that's in your packet was prepared. Last week, the appropriations committees in both the houses of the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate met and went over their suspense calendars. It's a place where bills go to die and nobody usually knows why. And then tomorrow is the deadline for bills that made it out of suspense or didn't have a fiscal component to be voted out of their House of Origin. So Senate bills have to get out of the Senate by tomorrow, and Assembly bills have to get out of the Assembly. I want to highlight 3 bills that we've been talking about in your monthly reports, and one that we've actually discussed at prior board meetings, and that is AB 1999, Assemblymember Irwin. This is the income graduated fixed charge, where there was a proposal in a budget bill a couple of years ago that required the PUC to institute an income graduated fixed charge on bills related to income levels. The bill that was introduced to great fanfare earlier this year never got a hearing. And what is interesting is, I heard May 9th came up earlier as a momentous day, but there was a hearing at the PUC on this issue, and they made a decision to institute an income graduated fixed charge. It is $24.15 for most ratepayers. It will be care customers will pay $6 a month, and FARA customers will pay $12 a month. The earliest that would start showing up on a PG&E bill is likely January of 2026. Also on May 9th, the very same day, the bill AB 1999 that didn't receive a hearing was significantly amended and went straight to a hearing and was amended in a hearing of the Assembly Utilities and Energy Committee. As amended, it would have required the legislators to study and review the electric charge that had been approved that day. It would have sunsetted the CPUC's authority to implement the income graduated fixed charge, and it would have sunsetted the entire program by July 1, 2028. And also provided that the increases could not exceed the rate of inflation. The amended version did pass the Assembly Utilities Committee, but because there was a fiscal component to it, it went to the Appropriations Committee. And interestingly, it died there. It got 2 yes votes and 13 members of that committee did not vote on the bill. So it failed and is now dead for this year. Just quickly, AB 2054, which we've been discussing in your packet, would have created a cooling off period of initially 10 years for CEC and CPUC commissioners before they could take a job at an IOU or other entity. That got shaved back in the first committee to 3 years. And then as it went through its last phase at appropriations, it got cut down to 1 year. So it is now even less than the current 2-year cooling off period. And one other bill I want to mention is SB 1095. That's Senator Becker's Cozy Homes bill. It would have made it easier to overcome impediments that mobile homes and condominiums have in electrifying when they're contrary to the rules of the House. And that bill also got held in the suspense calendar and will not be moving forward this year. Very quickly, the state budget is up for discussion. Budget committees have begun meeting. And I did see where all of tomorrow's hearings are off now, but the situation will pick up after the holiday. Of note is that there's been a lot of discussion about a climate bill, a climate bond on the ballot in November. Those bills passed. There was an Assembly climate bond. There was a Senate climate bond. They got out of their House of Origin. As proposed, they were $15 billion each. It's not going to be anything close to that. But there is a lot of noise in Sacramento that that would be one possible way to backfill possible budget cuts to climate and energy programs. There was some excitement this week as advocates for clean hydrogen and for offshore wind kept making a push that there'd be a climate bond and they be included. But right now, we just don't even know if there's going to be one. It has to get out of the legislature by the 26th in order to appear on the November ballot. So that's my report. Any questions? Thanks.
Does the climate bond require the governor's approval?
The bond?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're legislative bills, so it would need to be signed by the governor. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, are there any members of the public?
Thank you.
Oh, do you have next time?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Sorry, it'll be
We'll
quick.
continue.
Thank you, Mark. Just letting you know, sorry, one moment. Still out there in the community, most of our busy time has passed with Earth Day, but still doing quite a lot of tabling and community events. I'm still making the rounds at council briefings. I think I've done 9 of them now. And I think we will achieve our goal of going to every single council chamber, including the county, by the end of the year, maybe even by October. All right. We have a number of new staff who have joined us. Melanie Jasper is here this evening. She's our new Associate Programs Manager for EV, working with Philip. Welcome, Melanie. And then we have 3 others coming. And then we have 4 new interns from universities around the country joining us in June. And this group of people will conclude all of the hiring that you all approved last year of the budget season. So we're right in under the wire. There's a couple more requests through the budget season, but the good news is there's no postings on the website right now. So we are staffed up. And there's our upcoming meetings for June. A reminder that it is likely we will not hold any meetings in July to be consistent with the practice of local governments and give everybody a little break. So with that, pass it back to you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, are there any members of the public who have any comments on the CEO report? Okay. I take it none from Nellie. All right. With that, we're going to close CEO report and move on to item 10, the CA Community Advisory Committee CAC report. And we have Chair Cheryl Schaff. She in person or online?
She's online.
Sorry, with the glasses on, I can't see more than.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, good evening, Honorable Chair Colson and members of the board. The CAC met Thursday, May 9th. Leslie Brown, Director of Account Services, explained PCE's existing call center service to us and how customers will benefit from bringing the service in-house. So we passed the following recommendation. The CAC supports the plan to transition to an in-house contact solution to enhance overall customer experience and support PCE's decarbonization program goals. The CAC recommends exploring the inclusion of some evening and weekend hours. A subset of the CAC earlier had developed a resolution, and the committee passed it unanimously. We expected it to be included on the board's agenda for discussion and possible action this evening. Since it wasn't, I will read the resolution in its entirety into the record. Whereas it is an institutional priority of Peninsula Clean Energy to contribute to member jurisdictions reaching the state's 2045 goal to be 100% greenhouse gas free for transportation and building electrification by 2035. And whereas the Board of Directors issued a directive in September 21 on reaching 100% greenhouse gas free by 2035. And whereas member jurisdictions have limited resources and time within which to dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet the above goals. And whereas the Community Advisory Committee believes both the mission of PCE and the best interests of member jurisdictions would be served by ensuring member jurisdictions are well informed of the likely relative effectiveness of existing and planned building electrification policies, model ordinances, and regulations offered by PCE in making progress toward those goals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the PCE Community Advisory Committee respectfully requests that the board direct staff to disclose to all its member jurisdictions and the public for each existing and planned building electrification policy, model ordinance, and regulation promoted or offered by PCE, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions reduction and co-benefits that realistically could be achieved by adopting such policy, ordinance, or regulation. The CAC respectfully requests that the board consider and act on this resolution at its June meeting, if such consideration is not possible this evening. Peter Levitt, Programs Manager, Distributed Energy Resources, shared and led a discussion about PCE's strategy for enhancing distributed energy resources. After Vanessa Shin, Senior Community Relations Specialist, shared the proposed CAC 2024 work plan, we approved it with this sentence. In addition to the working groups outlined below, the CAC encourages staff to reach out to committee members on an ad hoc basis to solicit input on education programs, distributed energy resources, DEAI, and other topics. This completes my report. Are there any questions?
Just by point of clarification, a memo was provided to the board on website. You have in front of you. Copies are available for the public on the agenda page of our website. And I'm happy to hear that we're not trying to pass this this evening because I think we might need a little more input. So at this point, I have 2 comments on it, but does anyone, do any colleagues have any comments or thoughts?
Well, I guess I'll just mention that.
This is Director Lorraine.
Yes, thank you. Given what we just heard and read, I was thinking, Chair Colson, of bringing it up perhaps in committee member reports to suggest that, ask the question of whether the board would be interested in putting it on a future agenda item.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out there now in case the protocol would be different.
That would be fine. Okay, do I see Director Alves have his hand up? No, okay. So before I open it up to members of the public, I do think, Cheryl, this is, you know, Chair Schaaf, this is a wonderful, and I think is Vice Chair Benson here? Right? So just introduce yourself really quick because I always like to acknowledge when our other students are here. I think I saw him hiding in the corner back there. The very last paragraph, the now therefore be it resolved paragraph, has a lot of mandated work for the staff included in it. So I would like to sort of remand that paragraph back to the staff to work with the PAC to make sure that this is work that they have capacity, time, and the data and capability to actually do and execute. So if that would be the pleasure of colleagues, the idea would be, I would remand that back. They will work with, staff will work with CAC, and then we will bring this back for an adoption with the staff's input in June. Would that work for people?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to members of the public. Any comments there, Ben? Okay, remember, yes, Mr. Mendelson, Vice Chair Mendelson.
Thank you, Chair Colson. Yeah, I'm Jason Mendelson, Vice Chair of the Community Advisory Committee. And thank you for taking a look at this. We really appreciate it. This is a thing we care very much about on the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'll speak only for myself as a resident of Redwood City in this capacity. But we think that Peninsula Clean Energy has taken a lead in building decarbonization and electrifying our homes. And we think that we want to keep that inertia going despite any obstacles that might be there. And one of the main ways to do that is to obtain knowledge about what works and what doesn't. And I will point out that we did, just to defend or not defend, but enhance the reputation of the Community Advisory Committee, we did meet with the staff in advance of preparing this. And at least it's my understanding, and I don't want to speak unilaterally, that they are on board with the work that would be entailed to do this. I think we do want you guys to review this, and we can come back obviously and help present. But I do think we didn't shove this on the staff. We hope that they will be capable of doing this going forward. And I know other members of the committee are to speak on this, but I just want to point out that we think this will help us identify what policies and programs will be helpful to achieve our goals. And it's a big passion project of many of us on the advisory committee. So thank you very much for your time.
Yes. Hi. Chair Colson and members of the board. My name is Robert Whitehair. I'm a member of the Community Advisory Committee as well. I'm from San Mateo. This action, as Jason just said, is very important to us. A lot of us have attended many city council meetings. I've seen some familiar faces of attending San Mateo City Council and some of the others in the room over the last 5 years. And I know what happens in some of these meetings. They're long, lots of residents speaking, lots of council discussion, lots of things come up. And some of the proposals that you're going to see in the coming year about building codes and NOx standards and a lot of other things are very complicated. So what we are asking for as a member, I'll speak for myself as a member of the commission or committee, is that we have a full vetting of the positive impacts, and maybe if there are any negative impacts, of all the things that are going to come before you. I can think of building codes are coming back because it's the cycle of the NOx standards going to come to you because we're going to area air quality management district. It would be in our best interest, your best interest, we think, to have a full vetting of all the data. What will be the impact of each one of the various things you'll see before the council. It'll make your job a lot easier at the meeting because you'll be able to use fact-based data. It's very important to us. We do a lot of work. Some of us in this room, most of us in this room, attending a meeting of certain communities, trying to advocate for electricity. And to me, this is the third leg of the stool. How do we get data that will back up some of the things that are being proposed? So I thank you for the time to consider this, and please bring it back to the next meeting. Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor.
I was gonna ask, was there debate over using the word realistically? So as I see the policy, I think that's like a loaded word.
Yeah, the amount of gas emissions benefits that could realistically,
I don't know. We'll have to go back to staff, but we'll end. Can we address that when we come back to you?
Yeah. Just.
That's why we're remanding it back.
Thank you.
Review. Okay, so this is not an action. Oh, yes, please, Ms. Director Mackey.
Staff that sometimes, having made reports to the public in council meeting where their eyes glaze over about one way to get people to maybe rack the brain around this is instead of just stating the amount of greenhouse gas emissions being reduced, express it as a percentage of within the PCE service area, the reduction that would be benefits.
I think that's great. I think a lot of people absorb data in various ways, and visual data and mathematical data, all different kinds. And I do like that the word co-benefits is included in there too, because that allows for the soft side elements, which I think is what a lot of times the public is really interested in. Okay, those are great suggestions. And so if there are no other members of the public who want to comment, we will close this, and the staff will bring it back to us at the next meeting. And I want to thank the CAC members who joined us in person today, welcome to our meeting, and for all the hard work you do. Item number 11, approval of the establishment of a rent stabilization fund. This is an action item. Nick Jur is going to, our CFO is going to make a presentation, and I think some of you have seen this before, but we'll get one final word.
Yes, this was presented to the Audit and Finance Committee a couple weeks ago, who approved it to take it to the board. So I apologize for those of you on that committee. It's a little bit of a repeat. As some people's eyes may glaze over data, I also realize people's eyes may glaze over accounting topics. So I will do my best to keep this as high level, not interesting as it can be, but I apologize for the topic. Accounting, I know, is not everyone's favorite topic. But first of all, I want to describe what a rate stabilization fund is. It is basically a tool available to government entities such as PCE that would allow us to essentially recognize expenses and the revenues to recover those expenses in the same period, because that doesn't always happen at the same time. There can be timing difference between the two. The reason this accounting code was put in place, actually, I don't even know how many years ago it was, but a while ago, was in the name of the title, Rate Stabilization Fund. It was designed to help stabilize customer rates. There's an understanding that customers highly value and prefer stability in their rates. And a lot of providers of service, think of water utilities, electric utilities, garbage collectors, don't always, costs can be very variable. And there's sometimes a need to increase or decrease rates to match that cost profile. And that's not often in the customer's best interest. So this accounting tool was put in place to allow entities like ourselves to manage through those situations. It essentially allows us to defer revenues in years where our results are strong, or such as the current year, which for those of you who track our financials and saw our audit financial results in the last quarter, and to be used in years when maybe the results aren't as strong. And I'll walk through the accounting and how it works on the next page, for those of you who's maybe cheated already and looked. We don't have any debt today, and I'm not at all saying we will. Don't jump off, there's no plans to, but there could be a situation when we do have debt in the future and maybe financial covenants. And another benefit of this accounting tool is that it could be used to potentially help us meet financial covenants, allow us to maybe meet a certain fixed charge cover ratio. And so that's another benefit down the road that this could be used for. The accounting impact, I'll try and keep it at a high level, and we'll go through an example on the next page, but I'd like to think it's pretty simple. Basically, it allows you to, what you do is you reduce revenues. So revenues, and this is just accounting. As you see in my next bullet, there's no impact to cash. This is just on our financial statements. So just how our numbers are shown to the public. Cash is regal, as I've been told, and there's no impact to that. But basically the accounting impact is revenues goes down, and if costs stay the same, that means our net position also goes down in the accounting period where we're deferring revenues. And then in the next accounting period, or 2 accounting periods later, revenues goes up and change in net position goes up. when that revenue is recognized. And I'll go through an example on the next page that hopefully makes this somewhat easy to understand. I'll also point out that 5 of our peers have put in place rate stabilization funds. I've talked to most of the CFOs at these companies to understand lessons learned. Have they enjoyed it? And some of that learnings has been incorporated into our guidelines, which I'll go into in a couple pages. So quickly on the accounting, and again, I tried to make this simple. This is a made up income statement, made up numbers, fictitious company, but let me just walk you through from left to right. Is that right? Yeah, left to right on the page. So on the left, you've got sort of a current situation, pre-rate stabilization fund, where a company, and you can make up the company, pretend it's us, is earning, let's make it millions just to make it exciting, 100 million in year 1, 105 in the next year, and 110 in the third year. So kind of stable revenues going up by maybe the rate of inflation. Costs, however, in this fictitious example are all over the place. 85 million in year 1, next year the costs go through the roof, maybe cost of energy is really high if that's the industry we're in, and then they come back down. And the net result, which is math, revenues less costs, as you see the change in net position is a positive 15, things are great, negative 4, positive 7. Not a great profile. One thing that the entity on the left could do is to increase their rates in year 2 so that they're not losing money, and then reduce them in year 3. That would obviously be instability rates and something they could do. But here comes, voila, we've got the rate stabilization fund that will hopefully help solve that without the rate volatility. So on the right, you have the same revenue, 100, 105, 110. And what we've shown here, and this is almost exactly how it will look on our financial statements, there will be an extra line in there, revenue deferred from and to the rate stabilization fund. And you can see in year 1, we're deferring 10 million of revenues and recognizing it in the next year, 10 million. It doesn't have to be the next year. I'm just using that for the example. It could be 5 in year 2 and 5 in year 3, or 0 in year 2 and 10 in year 3, if you get the point. But in this example, just to make it easy, 10 million is deferred in year 1, same costs, you result in 5 million change in net position. The revenue is recognized in year 2, and voila, you've got 6 million of change in net position, and then 7 million the next year. So a little more of a nice smooth profile. I also circled here just to reiterate, as I said before, cash between the two left and right has not changed. There's no impact in cash. We collect the cash we do. This is just an accounting tool. Thank you. Any questions on the accounting? I've tried to hopefully make it as simple as possible. We have proposed some guidelines, some sort of guardrails to put in place to help you give you some comfort on how we're going to implement this tool. These guidelines have come from conversations I've had with the other CFOs. Some of the CCAs actually have formal policies on their websites. We've kind of tried to take the best of all of these. The first one is that we will consider deferring revenues when our change in net position is greater than 3% of revenue. So in an example close to our situation, 500 million of revenues, that would be $15 million change in net position. There's, however, in the second bullet point, a limit to how large the rate stabilization fund can get. And we've put that at 15% of revenues. So again, an example of a company ourselves have 500 million of revenues, that would be $75 million would be the utmost limit. So this is not a unlimited tool. As far as when we would withdraw revenue from the fund would be when we are in a negative change in net position, or maybe as necessary if we needed to satisfy certain covenants. Again, not today, but in the future. And then we'll obviously notify the board when we are deferring or recognizing revenue. So in summary, we're recommending establishment of this fund under GAS, that's the government accounting standard 62, to allow us to help stabilize our rates so we don't have to decrease them and increase them. And we're authorizing the CEO and the CFO to make these deferrals and recognition as prudent and appropriate based on the guidelines I just shared. And I would mention that assuming the board approves this, our plan would be to defer a portion of the revenues in this current fiscal year. It is a very strong year. Those of you who are well aware, we are expecting to see a very significant increase in cost of power in the next 2 years. So this will be a tool at our disposal to allow us to hopefully smooth out our net revenues position.
Got it.
That is it.
Okay, fantastic. I'm gonna open it up for questions from colleagues. Yes, Director Rickson.
I think I spaced out for a second. That's, I just wanted to look at the proposed guidelines. Thank you. I don't think I have questions, I just spaced out.
Yes, I'm gonna go right next to Director Nash. So why, it says staff will notify the board of directors after the transfer is made. Why would it be after as opposed to?
It gives us more discretion talking to actually our Maher Accounting, who works with a lot of the CCAs. Having to get board approval at the time we're closing the books, deciding how much of revenue to defer or recognize has caused for some of the CCAs a lot of delays in the process. So our preference is within the guidelines, which is why we put these up, to give us the discretion, and then we would report out on those activities.
It's a little beyond the purview of this board to be making those kind of micro business decisions. So I feel very comfortable giving them discretion with the guidelines. And then we can, get a report out, and if for some reason there's problems, then we'll make a change.
And also, there's every opportunity, there's every chance, and you're about to hear about it next month, where the board will be notified in advance, right? It's just, we want to be able to have that discretion if indeed we have to move more quickly.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Director Ops.
I see the cap for the total fund. Will there be any kind of cap on the annual deferrals?
The first one is the 3% of revenues. The cap, no, the cap, it could be 75 million in one
first year. Okay.
And this first year will be close to that, probably, will be our recommendation.
And Director Lorenzo.
Thank you. I was thinking about potential drawbacks with instituting a policy with this, and the only thing I could think of is that I guess like there's an idea of putting some money aside and only being able to use it along these guidelines generally, and that might potentially impact how much money we might direct into some other elective. So I was just gonna ask kind of a two-part question there, like, how would you say this plays with our overall reserves and other electives we might be using with these funds? And are there any other drawbacks that you see that other than that?
As far as drawbacks, I asked my peers, why I always try to ask the question, what is the debt? I'm a big believer there's pros and cons of every decision. And so why wouldn't we want to put this in place? And to be honest, it was really hard to find any. The only one that came up a little bit, and it's on us, it's just another administrative hassle of keeping track, how much is in the fund and when are we going to recognize and deferring it. Not a reason not to do it, and we're more than happy to do that, but that was the only one that came up. As far as impact on our programs, I'll also, say that this is not cash, so there should be no impact on how much cash we have available to direct to programs. So I don't see this in any way impacting, positive or negative, to be honest. It's really just, I hate to use the word window dressing, but an accounting tool.
It's a smoothing.
It's a smoothing.
It's a risk management smoothing tool. And I mean, maybe I'll elaborate just a little bit here too, which is when we meet with the rating agencies, they are very disinclined to have a negative number show on financial statements for the year. And so their sort of solution to that is, their question is, are you willing to raise rates if there's a negative? What this allows us to do is not have to raise rates in order to cover a negative year, because we've been able to smooth. It's a little bit, reminds me a little bit of like dealing with your pension funds, like actuarial smoothing. So it's kind of allowing us to roll it through. And you can kind of think of it that way. You can even almost think of it like a 115 trust, where you're sort of putting money aside, and then you can draw down. But it's a little more fungible than that even. This is, very fungible for us. So for example, we needed more money for programs, we could withdraw for programs.
It's not a restricted fund.
Not restricted.
In the sense of loans.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you.
so they're helping with the rating agency moment. Yes.
Yeah,
Dr.
that was my point. We're really doing this for the rating agency.
Yeah.
I want to be pretty clear.
Yeah.
So, right now, I don't know if we're anticipating going to the capital markets and, getting money, but potentially, and I still have questions as to whether we want to do that, but regardless, when we get there, we'll talk about that. But if we want to have that ability, Nick is, in talking to our other CCAs, found this, accounting tool that we could use that would allow us to smooth revenue. But we could still have a large capital reserve that we could use without calling it whatever we're calling it. But it would show up that year, our revenue would show up as negative, and then the rating agencies would say, well,
Yes.
what did happen? So,
Yeah.
and apparently utilities are one of those entities that are allowed to use. Is that correct? This GASD?
Yeah. In addition to rating agencies, I think there's just other stakeholders who might look at our financials, such as power producers, people pull up our statements, vendors, they see a big negative that could raise red flags. It allows us to kind of wash that away.
Well, and I also think that a big part of the reason we're doing it is so that when we go to rate setting, because that we've adopted a new rate setting methodology that definitely takes into account what our required expenses are and what the budget is, and having to cover that. And so if we have a good year and we're able to defer, to cut and to smooth, to me, that is the biggest benefit to our customers. They're also a key audience here.
Yes, go ahead, Carlos.
But any keen reviewer of financials
Yes.
will be able to determine that in a particular year.
They could.
Right, so that it's, for most folks who are just reviewing quickly, it's like, okay, good, they're not the black, but, one will be able to realize, this rate stabilization fund, it's here before.
Because it doesn't change cash.
And did I see Director McHugh?
Yeah, just,
And then
I
I'll.
always kind of like to think about sort of mirror image of these things. Hypothetically, let's say in year one, we had a losing year, but we expect a profitable year in year two. We recognize revenue in year one, and this doesn't exist. We recognize revenue in year one to make year one look better and reverse it in year two.
You gotta start with
That's good.
Thank you.
Will be long.
This essentially creates sort of revenue surplus pool, if you will.
Yeah, revenue pool, not cash pool, but a revenue pool to be used.
Surplus. Yeah, rainy day revenue, what do you call it? And hopefully, certainly, we'd love to see it increases. But on certain years when you need to draw from it, since we're a governmental agency, I would imagine all these financial will still be transparent, publicly, no matter what. Right, so to that end, as we draw from it, to smooth out bumpy rides, for lack of better words, how would they likely to be viewed at by credit agencies and others?
That's a good question. I don't know if that's unclear, because a bunch of you have said, as you are right, someone who is astute at looking at financial statements will see this. It's not hidden, it's a clean, I've looked at MCEs, there's a row in the revenue that shows negative or positive if they're deferring or recognizing. So someone can look through that. And we're allowing them to, but the bottom line, the profit, the net change in net position, the net revenue will show positive, and if someone's doing a quick review, they'll see that. In your question of if someone saw a positive change in net position, but they were diving in and said, the only reason was because they were
negative on that
recognizing
revenue pool.
That's true, and we would explain that that's true, but we were doing it for customer stability. We didn't want to increase rates. We're in great shape financially. We didn't need to increase rates, but we'd have to walk them through that. So this is not a panacea. It's not gonna solve every problem, but it's a tool.
Just a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah. And what sort of policy decisions would be derived from I guess in the end, as we discuss policy decisions in the future, we cannot just look at the reported revenue as much as we need to look at holistically.
Yeah.
Not just the reported, the reserve revenue.
I think I'm obviously learning the CCA world. But the more important metric, I think, to us is cash and days cash on hand. And, you know, what do we have to allocate to programs and the impact on rates? And that is what I look at most.
But also setting trends and
Yeah.
looking at where the market's going. I mean, obviously, we're expecting rates to continue, but the cost of energy, I would say, to continue to rise.
Hopefully go up and then down, but
That's what the projections are.
Yeah, Rick DeGolia, when we make, or you make a decision to defer revenue, is it at that time that you make the decision when you will recognize that revenue?
No, can I ask?
So,
I'm sorry.
so you can defer it into that little box at the bottom of the financial statement, and you can leave it there for as long as you want?
I asked that exact question to Mike Marr, who is our accountant who works on all the other CCAs. I said, when you defer it, do you need to have a plan to use it? And the answer is no. And so it can wait there forever, you know, until you.
And the proposal is that the maximum dollar amount that can be in that box is 15% of revenue?
Of the then current revenue.
Of the then current revenue. So if you build the amount until you get close to 15%, it's going to change because your revenue is going to change as time passes.
Yeah. Exactly. And in full disclosure, our plan, and obviously pending board approval, and we need to see how the financial results finish up in the last quarter, would to be pretty much put almost 75 or maybe it's 65 in that account this year. So we kind of be at that max. And then we believe we're gonna need to draw on it over the next 2 years when the cost of energy, cost of REX explicitly and RA goes up, and then we hope it comes down.
And I guess the question then I have is how, so in the last year, we had this situation, we didn't have this tool. And instead of putting money into a box that we have that then.
Not money, just revenue, but.
Well.
It's just
We're
an
putting,
allocation.
but on a balance, it's a balance sheet where we're just building cash. And we're just calling some of that cash is in a box rather than having been revenue, right? It's deferred revenue. It's revenue that will be recognized at some point in the future, but it has grown our balance sheet. In the last year, rather than putting that excess revenue in the box, we decided to implement a program where we have effectively redistributed that revenue to ratepayers through the different mechanisms that we agreed to use. If we did this, then this would be an alternative to that.
No.
It sounds like it's a tool
it's
that
a
could
both
be
and.
used.
It's a tool to, I view this again as very different than cash and making decisions on what should we do with our quote excess cash. It's really just a smoothing of earnings is the way I look at it. And I don't think if we had this tool last year, it would have changed. Wasn't here, but I don't believe it would have changed any of our decisions on what to do with the surplus funds. We still had 350+ million of cash and growing. It just would have, instead of last year reporting a change in that position of, I don't have it in front of me, 100 million, it would have been 50 million. And then this year we wouldn't have.
So let me restate what you just said and make sure I understand it. So if I understand what you're saying, instead of recognizing everything as revenue, we would have recognized less than 100% as revenue, and some portion we would have put into a deferred revenue box, but we still could have distributed that.
Exactly.
In the same way we decided to distribute funds to our ratepayers. And we obviously can sort of manage this also with how we set rates, right? Because that changes future revenue to the extent we lower rates, or increases future revenue to the extent we increase them.
And we're trying to stabilize rates and not jump up and down, pending the market conditions, and that's the big reason to do this.
If there are no other questions or comments, I'll open it up to members of the public, and we can always come back if somebody has something. Gaia, did you have something? You're good? Okay. Are there any members of the public who have a comment on this online? Nothing around, no, okay, any members of the public? I'll catch everybody, okay. Great, if there are no more questions or comments from the board of directors, I would ask if someone would like to make a motion to approve the recommended policy. Or the recommended policy for a rate stabilization fund.
So moved.
Thank you very
Go
much.
ahead.
Director Romero makes the motion.
Second.
Who do we get down there? We had a whole little concourse. Symphonic yeses down here. We're gonna give it to Director Lorraine. Man, today. So thank you for coming. May we have a roll call vote, please?
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont.
Yeah.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Como, Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City, Half Bay.
Yeah.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae, Pacifica, Portola Valley.
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside. Motion passes.
Great, motion carried unanimously. On to item number 12. Approval to proceed with the development of an in-house customer contact center. It's an action item, and Leslie Brown, our Director of Account Services, and Stephanie Elmore, Contact Center Manager, will provide our report today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the proposal to move our contact center to it being staffed in-house with PCE employees. Going to take a minute to introduce Stephanie in a second, go over the business objectives, our current state of affairs and what we'd like to see going forward, our peer agency analysis. We've done some financial impacts, the timeline for implementation, and finally the recommendation. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Elmore. I have over a decade of experience within call center management. Most of my experience is on the East Coast. Before I moved out to California, I've supported multiple call centers within a range of either retention, customer service, and escalations. I've also helped train representatives and monitored for quality assurance, and I've assisted with setting up 2 call centers in my experience as well. So that is a little bit about me, which is why I'm excited to be able to help start our in-house contact center here.
Thanks. So just to review, so our business objectives here that we highlighted in the report that hopefully you guys all had a chance to take a look at is really to improve the customer experience and enhance quality control, to really get that 360 view of customers and have that customer-centric support, and then to focus on customer retention and reducing opt-outs. So this is just a snapshot of our current sort of state of affairs. Over on the left-hand side is our contact center that is outsourced right now, managed by Calpine and their subcontractor that does call centers for all of their CCAs. And then on the right here is an amalgam of solutions that are happening with our programs team and different touch points. And really, you know, what spurred this effort about a year ago was Raphael and I sitting down and having a conversation about how are we going to kind of marry these things together as they're pushing forward and further development of programs and higher touch solutions for customers. We realized we really could not make that happen with our current outsourced third-party call center and needed to look for a different way. So just to give a little bit more detail of what the current state of affairs is, when somebody calls our toll-free number, they're routed through an IVR platform, which is that computer sort of phone tree type platform. They can self-serve through that platform for a couple of things, like opting up to Eco 100. You can, and if you have the right information, you can process, you know, an opt-out, or you're then transferred to a CSR that's employed by a contractor called Energy Choice California, which is a subcontractor to Calpine. So those folks are trained, they do just answer calls for the CCAs, but they are trained in a limited capacity about general billing topics, how to explain what the CCA service is, and give sort of nominal advice on what kind of rate plan you're on and other things about that nature, but they do not have any access to our internal system. So no access to our program statuses that someone might apply for. They're limited in their capability to give advice on complex billing issues. And so really what has to happen when somebody has a problem is they get escalated out. And that escalation can go through 2 or 3 hands before it's finally turned back to the customer, so that what somebody's hoping to maybe resolve in like one phone call usually takes a couple of calls or an email, more than one day to turn around, because if it has to go out of that call center, escalate to either the Calpine staff or to us, then it's just a multiple day turnaround. And so what we're gonna, Stephanie's gonna introduce now is like what we vision, going forward, what the new solution is gonna look like.
So for our new ecosystem, it's important to know that we are going to be keeping the infrastructure the same. We're not going to be reinventing the wheel. We're going to continue to be using the same IVR platform that Calpine currently uses for PC and their other CCA clients. Leaving that intact will allow us to ensure that we have a smooth transition when we do go over. The change happens in red, where our customers will now be able to speak to our in-house representatives. We are proposing to have a contact center manager with 3 CSRs, at least one who will be bilingual in Spanish to start. Based on our stats and the needs of our customers, we would like to hire a bilingual representative who speaks Mandarin next. Also, some of our biggest benefits would be, we now have direct contact with our customers. So we'll be able to provide a one-stop shop experience where they'll be able to answer complex, more billing questions, or more in-depth customer questions that will be about more direct programs, more in-depth programs, like more specific. We'll be able to go in-depth with those answers, and the customers will have their answers immediately. Another huge benefit is that we'll now have direct oversight and control over our training processes, which is huge because it's going to help improve our quality assurance, as we'll be able to get immediate feedback from our customers as well, because we'll be speaking to them directly. Oh, all right.
No problem.
Hit that
too fast. It's okay. Go back one more.
Okay, perfect. So then the next one will be our escalation ecosystem, which is similar to the other one, as nothing is changing within our infrastructure. The change again would be where they're now speaking to our in-house staff. The new ecosystem gives more of a customer focus, more customer centric approach, where our goal is to provide a more streamlined, effective process for all of our customers. With this ecosystem, we'll be able to resolve issues on first contact, which is what Leslie just explained, we're not able to do currently. So in many of these examples that I'm going to be able to give you, it takes an escalation in at least a day or 2 for our customers to be able to have a resolution. So some areas that will be able to help with that would be rebate applications. If a customer calls in and is asking for an update on their rebate, we'll be able to pull the application and give them their current status. We'll be able to address and answer any complex billing questions. We'll be able to go more in depth with them than our current representatives are able to do. We'll also be able to assist with choosing the best rate schedule for our customers, which we also want to be able to develop a training for the agents to be able to do that with all customers. And last but not least, we'll be able to assist with the direct install program. Being able to answer questions regarding their appointments and reschedule appointments as needed, as the customers aren't able to do that. When they do call in now, it's an escalation that has to come over to us, and it just prolongs the situation. What we'll be able to do is reschedule appointments, as we'll have access to the program Salesforce, and we can answer their questions about their appointments. And if not, we can call a third-party vendor directly and warm transfer our customers over to them to be able to further assist. So just a little bit of review, we do have some peer agencies that have already made a similar transition to making that staff in-house to varying degrees. Clean Power SF and Sonoma Clean Power both still utilize the Calpine infrastructure the same way we're proposing, but then have some in-house staff manning that system. Clean Power SF, their staff is housed within the SFPUC. Sonoma, they do have in-house staff, but they also use the backup for with ECC for overflow calls. We are not proposing to do that backup with ECC. In conversation with Sonoma, they thought that was really important to have initially in the launch. They've realized that it's created some complications, you know, with the sort of misalignment in training with the employees, and so the quality is vastly different between one CSR and another, and so they really want to bring that in-house. So they're going to be moving over to just having the in-house CSRs within the next year or so. MCE is a little bit different setup. They actually have brought over and built out their whole entire platform. They're in-house to support with their own IVR system and own CRM. That's something we may want to consider down the line, but just for this first transition, we wanted to keep it as simple and cost-effective as possible and just start with the staffing. We may want to make a bigger infrastructure investment down the line though. And then, so here we go with the financial impact. So as you can see, really the cost differential here is bringing that staff in-house. Calpine includes that sort of cost part of the infrastructure and our current fees with them. And so the staffing differential costs that we're looking for with, salary and benefits estimated for 3 CSRs and a manager is about $350,000. Different from what we would have been paying, for staffing with the outsourced solution that we have now. And then our timeline here, you can see it starts with happening tonight. Ideally, we get approval support from the board. We did also, we did bring this forward to the executive committee. You heard the CAC mention that they brought this. We also brought this to executive committee and had support there as well. So we're looking for support here tonight from the board to move forward. Starting then with the new fiscal year, transitioning Stephanie, who's currently with us on a contract through Robert Half into full-time, and then start pursuing that recruitment and hiring of CSRs and training, with the ideal scenario being that we launch in November to start taking over those calls from Calpine. And so the recommendation here that we're asking for is for the board to support the staff proposal to move from the forward with the transition to an in-house contact center. And happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Great proposal. I would open it up to Director Warbeck.
How did you come up with the 3 CSRs needed? Where did that come?
Yeah, so a couple things, and I'll let Stephanie answer that as well. So talking with our peer agencies, that seems to be the sort of minimum sort of viable product of staffing to launch with, to manage coverage for calls, to have at least to sort of maintain the wait times for customers, and then also to have sort of a little bit of a buffer ability for someone's sick or calls out, or you need to replace somebody. But Stephanie's
and
well.
make sure that we have complete coverage at all times. Like Leslie was saying, depending on, we don't want to have long wait times. We don't want our queue to be affected because we have short staffing. So we have 3 CSRs on staff based off of like the numbers that we've seen thus far. We think that it would be sufficient. Now, if our numbers go up later down the line, then maybe we might need more staff, but to start, we definitely believe that 3 would be great.
Yeah. And we do have a plan also as well. One of the benefits of having the staff in-house is the staff will also be able to be tasked to help with other administrative work that is currently sort of disparate, in other areas. I know Alejandra talked to her, she's pretty excited about the idea of us being able to help with some of the programs, admin work like account verification for the 0% loan, and follow up on, folks who may be missing a piece of information for a rebate application. Like, these are all things that we can flow in, sort of funnel into the workflow of that staff that we don't have the ability to do with the current outsourced CSR solution.
The other thing I might add, since you've asked about the actual CSRs, we will also give preference to CSRs living within our service territory. So I think that's also an important sort of local hire preference.
Okay, we'll go over here first real quick. Director Rysdale.
I have one question and one suggestion. The question is just I would like a comment on what the CAC recommended in terms of evening or weekend hours. Not necessarily advocating, but just wanted to get your comment on that.
Yeah, so Stephanie, I did talk about that. Yes.
So I agree in terms of it's something that within our program, if we have, maybe we start with maybe like one night with longer hours and maybe a half a day on a Saturday. My suggestion would be possibly starting that with like a part-timer so that we can make sure that that person has is assisting us with like the coverage. But I do agree with the fact that like if that falls into what our needs are, we have no issue making sure we can extend hours for that.
Great, and then the suggestion is what I love when when there's gonna be a long wait time, when they give you the option of getting a call back. I don't know if that's something that you could do, but
Yeah, it is an option in the IVR platform. We can set it up to, you do have that option to turn that feature on where someone can request a call back, or they can request to leave a voicemail. They don't have to wait in the queue if they don't want to. It is a feature. Yeah.
excellent, thank you.
Great. Yes, Director Ring.
Thank you. So given that we were planning to move forward with some larger programs, including like the upcoming concierge program, weren't we likely to need to expand capacity anyway, even if we were going to continue with the Calpine service?
Yeah, so the reality is we would not be able to funnel the concierge calls to the Calpine CSR solution. We would have had to, and this is actually what happened, talk about things like, I think I'm gonna have to like create like an go and outsource a solution for this piece, of the work. And I was like, that we should just bring the whole thing in-house. Like that makes much more sense than for you to look for an outsourced, solution for this one little piece of that program. So the scheduling for concierge appointments would happen, through that call center staff. So you would call that call center, you could call that number, and that our staff could schedule then somebody for they would do a little bit of screening to make sure that that's the right, assistance, path for that customer, and then schedule them for concierge follow-ups. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, I'll just make a couple quick comments. To me, I think I think that makes sense. And I think when we look as a board at the net cost increase here, that we think about that realistically, if we were gonna need to spin off another service or increase capacity in the way that maybe we're closer to net zero than even we're seeing today. And I just am generally in support of staff recommendation here, because I anticipate, especially when we do roll out those new programs, that customers are going to expect a high level of customer service that I think we'll be able to provide here. So I appreciate the work.
Director.
Thank you, Chair Colson. Question and a comment. Could you first please verify, are the CSRs working safe from home?
Yes. Yeah, they would be under the same remote work policy that the staff is. Yeah.
So one of the upsides and downsides to that is for the customer to have an experience that doesn't sound like a boiler room with tons of people talking in the background. That's really good. I like the idea that there's ongoing training, but I would make a suggestion that you perceive ongoing training working like a linear path with arrows on both ends. It's training not only for the CSRs, but also for PCE staff. And one of the downsides of people working remotely is that there can be things they encounter where if there was someone there, they could get off a call and say, oh, let me share this with you. How would you have done this? So I would suggest that you consider maybe debriefings, either daily or weekly, where those reps have a chance to interact with staff and say, here's some interesting calls we had. We can all learn from this, how to resolve it. And then it would also alert staff as to the areas that maybe we get ideas, or we certainly can identify and address problems quickly.
So that would definitely be something that I would include with the staff, like either daily or with our weekly meetings. And then they have open communication with myself and them for whatever questions they might be getting on the calls or whatever it might be. So that's something that personally I always do with my team. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and to be clear, Stephanie has managed a remote call center team before.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we have her, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie. No problem.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Romero.
This is point, I don't know, 1.33% of our budget, super small,
Yes.
under 1%. So, but I have a couple of questions. One is Stephanie. So that are our programs, are the complexity of our programs such that it will take a fairly long time, you think, for your call CSRs, is that we're calling it, for the CSRs to get up to speed? And then, of course, we're always thinking about introducing new programs, and I'm trying to understand, what do you think the uptime is to actually get folks up and running so that they can?
I think that it's gonna be a continuous learning situation. I do think that by them starting in November, like on the phones, if we start hiring them by July, that by the time we're on the phones in November, they'll have a great grasp of the information on the current programs that we do have. As far as if there's training that is happening, like I'm gonna continuously be monitoring them while they're especially while they're first on the phones. And an advantage to the platform that we're using is that I'll be able to allow them to turn on the screen. So if they do have any issues, like when they're processing or when they're on phones, I can see what the issue may be. But I don't foresee it necessarily being a long time for them to be able to pick up the information. And also we're not going to be, our candidates that we're going for, we're not looking for someone that's necessarily an entry level CSR. So I would like to have someone that does have experience and is able to grasp and pick up and move at a certain pace.
And I guess my other question, and this is to you, Stephanie. So the report actually talks about a fairly high level of turnover for CSRs. And because there's the training time there, is that going to impact the level of?
If that, honestly, it all depends on the person and who you choose. A lot of the turnover can be based off of entry level people or reps who come into a call center environment that aren't really sure what to expect. And it also, turnover is affected by not being able to help or staff properly. So that's another reason why we want to make sure that we do have enough representatives, is so that they're not overworked, they're not burnt out by the time it's the beginning of the next year, because they're so overworked or overwhelmed because they don't have enough help amongst them. So I don't necessarily foresee that being an issue.
I would also say there's a little bit slightly different nature about the type of work that we're doing and the type of calls that we're getting. There's obviously always going to be a handful of people, people that are upset about bills and angry about energy charges in general, and that's going to happen. But where we're expecting the real growth is from people who are calling us because they want help and they're interested in the things that we're doing. And so on the more of those calls are going to be I say vending positive versus every call is on the phone as somebody who's mad that they're trying to unsubscribe and they can't do it online, and you're forcing them to have a phone call with them and they hate it and this and that, and so I think the nature of what we're doing here is going to bend towards in general a more positive contact center experience, which ideally is going to lead to a lower turnover rate. Our other CCAs who've done this, the turnover rate for their CSRs is less than what you would have expected from other like sort of just a regular call center environment. Yeah.
And then how do you establish, performance metrics that actually allow us to maybe compare this to Calpine service?
Yeah, so we do
Right.
have a set of like SLAs, what we call service level agreements, with Calpine and X percentage of calls to be answered within like 45 seconds and stuff like that. So we can start with those SLAs, for this group, but then Stephanie has another set of metrics that she personally likes to implement for her teams. So we will be able to, we can do a comparative analysis of, what is the call time, length and the percentage of calls answered in a particular time frame from what we get from Calpine for our own CSRs. That is something we can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the cost is de minimis when you think about it.
Yeah.
Right? But if it does indeed kind of increase the level of service we can give to people related to the rebates and all the other programs, I think it's well worth it.
Yeah.
And I know Rick has experience with this and he's on the executive committee and he's probably vetted the heck out of it, but it sounds like it's probably worth the additional money for what we hope we're gonna get in service.
Yeah. Director Mackey?
One last question. Assuming we can identify every customer that calls, can we also then do a follow-up email, like from a lot of places we'll send you for a customer satisfaction survey? So that we have the ability in terms of trying to retain these people who are really well trained. We have a way of knowing who needs to be rewarded for doing an exemplary job.
There are options for follow-up surveys. I think we need to, we don't have everyone's email and not everyone wants to give us their email, even when they call in for things. So I think we'd have to have people consent to a follow-up survey to be able to send it or do that. But yes, we can make that an option
We can also possibly try to see if we can put that in the IVR as an option for them to do a survey before they end the call, and then make sure that is directed towards that particular representative as well.
Yes, Director Nash.
Just comment, I sat in a luncheon next to someone who does call center work. And she was very frustrated because she is being measured by the length of her calls and how many calls she can get through. And she feels that the time she spends is much better and they don't get repeat phone calls from the same customer who's upset. So I'm sure it just really made an impact on me and how when I'm on a call, I'd much rather have someone who's friendly, listens, rather than just tries to immediately get off.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, Director.
Could you speak to the multilingual piece a little bit more?
I'm sorry?
You mentioned a little bit about the multilingual piece. Could you repeat?
Yeah, so we will have a minimum of one CSR bilingual Spanish. From our records, of translated calls and calls coming in that are in other languages, Spanish is the highest by far alternate language requests, but it does only comprise of about 8% of our total calls annually. At the high point, which is this last year, previous years, it was like 3-4%. Since we've enrolled Las Spanish, so we do have a higher percentage of Spanish speaking households. And so that I believe that's probably what's been triggering the higher calls from that community. We do the next follow-up language on that would be Mandarin or Cantonese. And so Mandarin is the priority language, between the follow-ups for a secondary bilingual language, but there will be a live translation service available as well. So any language, that comes in, any calls that are in other languages, a CSR will be able to patch in, a live translation service. So we can handle anything for that somebody calls with. Yeah.
Perspective is about 34.2% of our populations are API in this county. 23.8% of our populations are Hispanic and Latino. I think, and then I'm quite certain that the CSR we and are hiring who speak those additional languages also are fluent in English. So I thought this would be an opportunity for us to have that commitment, that there's at least one Spanish and at least one popular Asian language speaking CSR available at all time during those hours.
The intention.
Yeah.
That's, but we gotta be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Right, to be able to serve our community, that's which, with these two demographic added together, that's the majority of this county. So I think this is an opportunity for us to show that commitment with those two popular languages.
Yeah. You know, in just Burlingame School District 1, we have something 57, I don't know, Dave, you would know, it's like 57 languages spoken or something. So I think having the backup opportunity for translation services, even in a town like ours, which is really, you know, as there are many other towns that probably have more languages spoken, I think it's really critical.
So yeah, I do recognize that that's an important element. I think that real-time translation services, but I think, you know, it's not just the language, but also culturally sensitive when it comes to that conversation at the same time. So I think that there is one commitment that I think it's an opportunity for us to make on those two languages alone, at least as a beginning. So
Perfect. Can I make one comment? So I'll just be very quick. So we were very intentional. Stephanie and Leslie researched all kinds of different technology solutions. And it was intentional to stick with the Calpine infrastructure, at least for now, to mitigate any, you know, risk of transition issues. And to also keep the initial investment, you know, modest. And at the end of the day, if this does not work, which I think it will, but you always have to say, like, what happens if? What happens if we would end up returning to Calpine and the solution that we're in now? I don't see that happening, but it is an option for us if it came to pass. I think the bigger thing for us to be watching, and it's probably gonna be a little bumpy, there's gonna be a transition because the impact on our programs team, it's not just the intake of the call, but then what happens, right? And building out that capacity. And so that's another issue that we're gonna be watching and responding to coming up.
If there are no more comments, I would like to open this up to members of the public who might want to speak on this topic. Billy, or anyone in the audience? Yes, please, Mr. Anderson.
Hi, Jason Mendelson with CLP really quick. I think this is a critically important thing that we do as a community liaison for the last 8 years. The few complaints we get tend to come around, what do you mean? What's going on with the bill? And why are you not in my county or in my area? So when we hear from people that have called in, they've had issues with it being remote, with the level of sophistication or response being limited. And I think it's critically important to be able to address that, because right now, one of the big things we've heard anecdotally again is, I just read an article, you're charging us less, my bill's gone up 10-fold, 50-fold. That's their impression, whether it's reality or not. And being able to locally respond, I think, is critical. And the second piece is for the programs team, this will be a revolutionary program we're undertaking to help with the concierge service for electrification and all the other programs. And having someone local, knowledgeable, trained that week, not 2 years ago, is, I think, incredibly important to pull that off. And what we're gonna do is gonna be amazing. And I think this is an important piece to make that happen. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other members of the public and no other comments, I would, just given the lateness of the evening and the fact that we still have 3 more items, I would love to have someone make a motion on this. We'll take Supervisor Mueller, Director Mueller as Supervisor. Sorry, we got all your titles in there. The same exact titles for the next guy.
Seconded by Supervisor.
Okay. Supervisor.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Yeah.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City,
yes.
Romero, East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City, Coconut Bay.
Yeah.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Baños, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica, Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, yes, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside.
Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. We have 3 additional items left. I want to just set the sort of timing on these. We're going to try to do 10 minutes for 13, 10 minutes for 14, 15 minutes for 15, just to give everybody a sense to get everyone out of here by 9. So I'm going to ask Vanessa Shin to come up and discuss with us an action item, which is the approval of our community advisory committee deliverables and work plan.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors. My name is Vanessa Shin, and I am the Senior Community Relations Specialist. And along with Kirsten Andrew Schwinn, we help support our collaboration with our Community Advisory Committee. And so today we'll share some results from their last year of work, as well as propose our ideas for how we'd like to continue our collaboration with these really valuable community members. And I'd like to acknowledge our Vice Chair, Jason Mendelson, and CAC member, Robert Whitehair, in the room with us. You also heard from our Chair, Cheryl Schaff, and there may be other members of our CAC on this call as well. So as a quick reminder, the Community Advisory Committee, which I'm going to refer to as the CAC, they are a group of up to 15 members who either live or work in San Mateo County or the city of Los Banos. And they advise Peninsula Clean Energy staff as well as the board on major public-facing initiatives, as well as help get the word out about Peninsula Clean Energy to their networks and communities. And so every year, we work together with the CAC to put together a work plan. And the purpose of that work plan is to really focus in on their priorities for the upcoming year and ensure that we're most effectively leveraging their time and expertise and making sure that it aligns with staff priorities as well. And so last year, the board approved their work plan, which I will review their results and deliverables today. And part of the work plan includes working groups. And what those are voluntary teams of CAC members that gives them the opportunity to dive deeper and collaborate more closely with staff on specific topics or projects than they might otherwise be able to do through our monthly meetings. And so I'll just present some quick highlights from each of the working groups from the last year. I will note that each working group provided a memo that was included in your agenda packet, and encourage you all to check that out when you have a chance. So the Building Electrification Working Group worked closely with Rafael Reyes to support community education around building electrification. Of note, they provided representatives to help review the proposals for our RFP for the new electrification turnkey service, as well as helped us develop our government building electrification program. The electric vehicle managed charging program worked with Philip Kobernick to help advise the design of that pilot program and help evaluate some of the results and implications for our work moving forward. The local solar and storage programs working group worked closely with Peter Levitt, and they researched different virtual power plant programs and distributed energy resources programs throughout the nation, and came up with a list of over 20 of these programs for our staff to further explore and inform our strategies. The Education Initiatives Working Group worked closely with me and other members of the community relations team to really help us explore and scale out our education programs to Los Banos in particular. And so the working group helped connect us with local partners and community groups who could, in particular, help us think about doing energy-related field trips, as well as other youth leadership and educational programs. And then finally, the Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Working Group worked closely with Kirsten Andrew Schwinn to provide us with feedback on the DEAI process, including specifically providing feedback on our language and technology access policy and a organizational-wide framework for equitable decision-making. Next, I'll take us to our proposal for the next year's working groups and work plan. And again, I'll say a little bit more about how we came to this list. It's a very iterative process in which staff will we invite staff to provide ideas for how they'd like to work with the CAC. The CAC also shares their ideas for what types of projects or what their interests are in terms of engaging with staff. And so we work on aligning all of those ideas and really with the goal of making sure that we're making the best use of our CAC's expertise and time, as well as our staff resources. So we are pleased to bring a list of 4 working groups that we're really excited about for the next year. The first one, I'll mention that this list of working groups was approved by the CAC during their last meeting. And the first working group is to support our COO, Shalini, on the strategic planning process and help advise on that. We have 2 programs related working groups, one on building electrification and one on transportation electrification. And each one will continue to work closely with staff to provide input on new programs, as well as outreach in the community and evaluating and improving. And then finally, we have a working group that'll work with our marketing team to help advise them on their brand strategy refresh and think about ways that we can better market and communicate to our wonderful customers. So our recommendation for you all tonight is to approve our CAC work plan and allow us to continue collaborating with these great members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Does anyone have any comments? Yes.
I'm really not trying to hog the floor tonight. One thing that kind of popped out to me on the deliverable report on building electrification was the line in near the end of the report about easing the burden of permitting for electrification. Sorry. The city engineer has consistently for several weeks been contacting me about is that one of the difficulties in permitting with every city ends up not in the planning department, not over the planning counter, but a city engineer who has to look at plans and finds that there's a contractor who either doesn't understand what has to be done, or that there's a resident who doesn't understand the limitations of what can be done. And his suggestion, our city engineer, is that PCE consider forming an advisory group of city engineers from within the whole service area. And I understand this, I mentioned it before, it sounds like a Herculean undertaking, but quite honestly, one of the problems with electrification is what I call the golden triangle between the resident, the contractor, and getting permits through. And the more that we can do to facilitate that being smooth and finding out what the problems are with certain contractors, including PCE approved contractors, there are still things we've dealt with a PCE approved contractor, and there were things that still had to be ironed out. I think it will go really far, even if it was once a month, a Zoom meeting for an hour to have that communication opened up.
Thank you. Thank you. Would staff take that under consideration? Okay, great. Yes, Director Wayne.
Thank you. Vanessa, just confirming that the building electrification program group will potentially help with things like the upcoming reach code cycle as well?
Yes, I do believe, knowing the members of that group, that they would be interested in pursuing that.
Very good. And then a quick comment, this is really cool. I have to admit, I was unaware of just how much the members of our CSC were helping us. And I think it's an awesome opportunity both for the members of the CAC and for us to take advantage of the amazing people who are on the CAC. So, huzzah, and thank you.
If there are any, yes, I was just going to say, it's just amazingly impressive and such a dedicated and very informed, knowledgeable, helpful group. And for one, I'm very, very grateful. And then a comment on the comment. Bosca, the water agency, they have such a group of the water agency person from each town, and they do meet like once a month. until they got a complicated issue, they were just doing it over Zoom. I think I love that idea.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, our, sustainability people did get to the other one. Okay, so if there are no more comments, I'm gonna open this up to any members of the public, please. Anyone? Okay. Great, okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Lorraine, we'll pick up. Down at the very end, Magical, Rod made the, thank you.
There's no reason for a roll call vote, right? Just for that. Nobody online.
Oh.
Roll call vote, we don't.
We've always done it that way.
Right.
Do we need?
There's nobody online, you don't need. to-
Okay, then let's do go fast then.
Speed it up.
All right, I'll take a motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone? No? Motion carries unanimously.
We got the list.
Thank MVP job. Bringing just added all the value you need. It's been number 14. We're gonna do this in around 10 minutes as well. Annual, we've got a couple minutes back though, because the party's. Kristen is, Schmidt is going to give us an update on the DEAI action plan and implementation. And this is a discussion item?
Yes.
I think all the rest are discussion. Gee, Marty, you really. came out of it. Negative.
Great. Good evening, directors. Kirsten Vander Schwind, Associate Director of Community Relations and Climate Equity. And I'm pleased to give you your one-year report on implementation of our DEI action plan. This DEI action plan was kicked off by you at the board, passing a DEI policy, policy number 22, in which we commit to making DEI a priority during our decision-making. There we go. And so you passed that policy in October of 2022. We developed an action plan to implement that policy with an outside consultant, which you approved a year ago. And in that policy, it calls for updates at least annually to the board. And so I'm happy to give you the update. So within that action plan, there are 44 specific actions total. And I am pleased to report that we have either completed or have in progress 80% of those actions. Now, this is a multi-year effort. We don't expect to get them all done in 1 year, and some of those actions are ongoing. For example, you never finish translating all your collateral because we're a dynamic organization, we're always writing new collateral. So some of these are ongoing actions, but we are well on our way in our first year. So the action plan is divided in different sections for roughly corresponding with the departments. So under organizational culture and DEI commitment, under the C-suite, the goal is to advance and promote our DEI within our workforce, business practices, policies, and programs. We had 9 actions that area. We completed 6, 2 are ongoing, and we've got 1 that will still start. And I have just a highlight from each of those areas that I'll give you. The full report is in your packet. So one action I'm very proud of is that we have developed a DEI framework for goal setting and decision making that we will apply to our major decisions and budgets moving forward. And we developed that a lot of input from staff, and so we'll be using that moving forward. Under HR, the goal is to create a workforce that is more representative, inclusive of folks in all backgrounds, representing our service territory. 7 actions, 4 of them are complete, 2 ongoing, 1 that we're still going to start. And I've got the little weightlifting guy there for the ones that we're still working on, or And so one of the areas for us to keep putting some effort on is continue to train our hiring managers on how to mitigate bias during the hiring and promotion process, and continuing our staff training on that. Also under training and development, which has its own section, we have the goal is to require employees to complete DEI related training, and also to offer this training to board and CAC members. We're still working on that part. We have 5 actions there. We completed one of them, 2 are ongoing, 2 we're still going to start. We have done 2 staff DEI trainings to date. Did a 4-hour one in October 2022, 2.5 hour one in December, and we're planning our next one for this year. Let's see. Here we go. Then under the energy programs team, our goals are to define energy equity, set goals and metrics for achieving it through our programs, and to increase input and feedback from our diverse communities to improve our equity in programs. We have 5 actions. 1 is complete, 2 are ongoing, and 2 we are still starting. And so one of the exciting ones that we're going to be working on this year is reviewing our current programs for gaps and inequities, and examining our programs from the point of view of the target audience that's served, program qualifications, and eligibility requirements, marketing methods, and barriers to participation through the process. Under marketing and account services, the goal is to improve accessibility of our customer service, and especially along low-income and disadvantaged populations and limited English proficiency groups. We have 8 actions. 1 is complete, 7 are ongoing. And so one of those that we're almost finished with is developing our language and technology access guidelines. But meanwhile, we've been doing a lot of this already. We print all of our outreach material in Spanish and traditional Chinese. We offer outreach services in Spanish, Mandarin, Cantonese, Tagalog, and other languages through our staff and also through our community outreach partners. Under vendor diversity and social responsibility, our goals are to include, ensure that our suppliers are environmentally conscious and equitable business practices. We have 10 actions, 4 are complete, 3 are ongoing, 3 are still to be started. And a highlight here is that our request for offers in our power procurement team, which is not most of where we spend our money, includes a qualitative section in which we ask questions about environmental stewardship of the projects we may be signing PPAs with, their disadvantaged community outreach, their workforce development, their responsible procurement and supplier diversity, and those qualitative questions account for 20% of the score when we are scoring PPAs. So that has a big impact. I want to give a shout out to our DEI Council. This is a council of staff members from all of our departments who are the liaisons to the department in implementing these actions. So thank you so much for the staff for supporting this effort. And also, we're still learning how to do this. We're only 1 year in, so we're still ramping up our HR capacity for DEI implementation, working on fully implementing our DEI training plan, and making sure there's ownership of this action plan implementation across all staff. So our next steps are to keep working on implementation and also to look at integrating these actions into our updated long-term strategic plans. So we don't have just one plan over here and then another DEI action plan over here, but it's all integrated. That's what I'm about.
Great, thank you. So at this point, I'll open it up for comments or questions. Yes, please. No worries.
One of the things in the report mentioned researching local community leaders, organizations that serve diverse communities. I would just ask your indulgence that when you do that, a lot of times diverse communities in the peninsula are assumed only to be large cities. We're a very small city and we have a very diverse population. And the needs of large cities are very different from small cities. So please, if you could explore both ends of that. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, yes. We have, Director Rajagona down there.
I thank you for making this work and being part of that original committee. And having this vision now coming into fruition is
Pretty awesome.
pretty awesome. So I just want to say thank you and looking for the other 20% to manifest as well.
Yeah, and I want to also thank the original board subcommittee that helped and pull together that policy and the DEI action plan for your support of this work.
Yes, please.
I would like to just also acknowledge Kirsten Andrew Schwinn, who has doggedly at times, and we appreciate that, pushed to make sure that we have achieved 80% of it in the first year. I think that's pretty amazing. It hasn't been easy all the time, can be uncomfortable. And I'm happy to report that Kirsten has agreed to stay in the lead role until we figure out where the next best home is, and it will be integrated into the strategic plan and hopefully integrated into HR. But that's work in progress right now. So I just want to say thanks and thanks for sticking it out.
Yeah, and thank you for owning it and being so caring. Yes, Director Romero?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that certainly having gone to some of the conferences, is that this is an industry that is predominantly occupied by non-people of color. In particular, Blacks are missing in a significant way. And I think as an industry and as certainly as PCE being a leader, we should be thinking about what we can do to increase the pipeline of people of color, of Black folks in particular, right? On the technical side. And if that means creating 1.5, 2-year internships among all of us, going out to historically Black colleges, right? Going to to the Haas School and specifically trying to recruit people of color into an industry that tends to be primarily white. If you are not deliberate about it, you're never going to be able to have a Black CEO of or Latino CEO. So I think it's something we should think about, certainly as an industry, but also how do we kind of as PCE try to promote, and it's not just folks in lower level positions, but it is how do you eventually in 10 years have folks who are capable of taking on some. And we comment, but thank you. This is wonderful work. I couldn't be talking about this without having all of this work that you all.
Thank you, and thanks to the board of directors who indulged me in this when it first came up, because this is all around the conversation around equity fluent leadership, and I think we're all on a big journey and we're learning and we're all exploring and learning and trying to be better at it, every single one of us. So Kirsten, you've just done a great job. I think that as this just becomes part of the fabric of our organization, it just ends up that everyone understands and knows, kind of how to do it around language, around, like you say, Carlos, recruiting. And, if we don't have people in roles and in leadership, when people interview at companies, if they look around and don't see someone who looks like them, or someone on our board who looks like them, or someone on our staff or a third-party vendor, they're not going to come. So we really do have to make a really conscientious, and frankly, those people are in incredibly high demand. People, graduating with those kinds of qualifications. So making it an attractive workplace is really, really important. If if there's no other comments on it, I look forward to getting an update in a year. I'm sure we're gonna be at 100%. I have no at all. And I want to figure out, Sean, for us to, share out this work, maybe in, at like the next Cal CCA meeting or something, to talk about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Because I think that, it's unique among CCAs, and I think we're really leading the, kind of on the forefront of it. And it would be wonderful to share that out, I think.
And the first step is to put it on the website, and that is something that is going live the next week or two.
Oh, great. Well, when that goes live, will you send us all the link and let us know? Perfect. Okay, if there's no other comments on that, we'll go to the discussion of distributed energy resources plan, part 1. And this is going to be led by Raphael. Peter. And or is it Peter? Oh, Peter's here. Okay, sorry, Peter. It's Peter and Raphael.
Great. Good evening, honorable board of directors and members of the public. Thanks for the opportunity tonight. Excuse me. So if we want to advance the slides here, we're going to be talking tonight in sort of, oh, it's just right here. Great. We're going to be talking in broad strokes around what we're working on as far as distributed energy programs go right now. I'll also be painting the picture of what our vision looks like for how we conceptualize distributed energy versus wholesale energy. We'll talk about our current programs and also our immediate next steps on our current programs, so immediate iterations of our existing programs. We will also be planning to come back to the board with a part 2 of this plan that will be significantly more fleshed out. So this is a broad strokes recap of what we're doing presently and what we will be immediately doing next. But we will also come to the board and probably later on this year and come up with an establishment of what our long-term strategy is around really expanding the deployment of DERs in our service territory. So first, let's start with just a quick overview of programs. So, with our programmatic offerings, the intention is to both affect individual choices, drive innovation, and also shape policy measures. But all these market forces affect the ability for customers to decarbonize. These are all the areas where we intend to affect change in order to scale decarbonization. This is true for each of our program areas: transit electrification, DERs, electric vehicle transit. And we do that by offering various different program segments. So we have, as I mentioned, the 3 legs of the stool: building electrification, transit electrification, and DERs. And under each of those, we have a specific focus on public agency facilities, residential facilities, and commercial facilities. There we go. So looking a little bit more into the details of our forthcoming plan here for distributed energy, the broad vision is for distributed and utility scale resources to work together to support a clean grid. Both DERs and utility scale resources are needed in order to scale a set of technological solutions that lead to mass decarbonization. The way we define DERs here is resources that are located on the distribution grid, either behind the customer meter or connecting into low voltage distribution equipment. And these things can lead to an aggregation, hopefully not an aggravation of solutions for customers that drive value to both customers and to the grid. And that aggregation, not aggravation, of resources becomes a network of resources that we define as a virtual power plant. So some of the key reasons that we're trying to proliferate distributed energy resources in our service territory, predominantly the first one is that it drives grid benefits. It's not, the proliferation of DERs is not to the detriment of the grid, but actually the contrary, it's to the benefit of the grid. They especially offer the ability to reduce our local peak load and carbon intensity, and they further aid the proliferation of renewable energy at large in front of the meter. They also can provide resilience to customers. They can lower customer costs. They can make electrification more economically viable. And one of my favorite aspects about distributed energy resources is that the way we're working on deploying them right now, it allows PCE to become front and center to our customers. It gives us another avenue to form a relationship with our customers, which is great. So the main programs that we're working on are, I won't read off each of them, but you can see that these are the 4 pillars of within DERs presently. We offer solutions for residential customers, for non-residential customers on our solar and storage public buildings program, for customers that have an electric vehicle that allow Peninsula Clean Energy to tap into it for the sake of load shifting. Then we also have a program called Flex Market that is also a load shifting based program. All of these are centered around predominantly shifting customers' electricity load so that they're using less energy in the evening and more energy typically during the daytime when renewable energy is abundant and low cost. Some of the near-term plans that we have budding for our DER programs include a battery storage program for residential customers, a virtual power plant program that is sort of more of a layer than a program. It's an attribute of programs rather than a dedicated program itself. And then also this notion of right-sized resilience. So right-sized resilience is a new term that we've been using which is intended to deliver an affordable approach to resilience for critical needs, for customers' critical needs. Not every customer needs a power wall. It's kind of like how not every garage needs to be a level 3 fast charging charger for customers' electric vehicles. Many houses need simpler solutions like portable batteries, and there's also inherent energy storage in systems like water heaters. So right sizing in this way allows us to scale our ability to provide backup power resources for customers in a similar way that we have a right-sized plan for electric vehicle charging equipment and building electrification equipment. So we're offering, we're going to stand up a right-sized resilience carve out of our home upgrade program. And then separately, we will also be standing up a dedicated residential solar and storage financing program as an immediate next step, iterating on what we had already done for residential customers for our solar and storage program. We will also be expanding, so this is the residential, sorry, I got a little out of turn here, but this is the residential solar and storage program. Briefly on that, it is a finance-based program where Peninsula Clean Energy is offering a loan to customers to adopt solar and storage equipment at their home. We are also leveraging those resources for the sake of grid services, as I described previously. So this is a way for customers to not worry about the financial implications or the capital requirement to go solar and storage, and it allows them to both drive savings while also receiving a backup power device. And the benefit to PCE's customers is that because we have a positive effect on the grid services associated with these deployments, then all of our customers benefit. And then another iteration of our existing programs is that we are going to expand our GovPV program, which is currently a solar-only program. So we're going to go back to existing sites and add battery storage. And then we are also developing projects with new solar and storage customers. So customers like those that like other public agencies that are interested in adding battery storage to their facilities, and also customers that are looking to get new systems installed entirely. This is also a finance-oriented program akin to what we're already doing on GovPV, which some of you are familiar with. And thank you to everybody who's been involved in the recent approvals of those systems at your agencies. So a little bit about the timeline here. This is just the immediate next steps. If you focus on 2024, you will see in blue there, the lines that are focused on the residential side include residential solar and storage V2. So that is the finance offering for residential customers interested in solar and storage. We will also be expanding our GovPV program to include battery storage as well. We'll be further rolling out our EV managed charging program. And as I mentioned, this is kind of just a portrayal of what is immediately in front of us. And so we will be coming back to you requesting approval for the residential solar and storage program and our non-residential solar and storage program. Separately, in the future, later on this year, we want to come back to the board and paint a bigger picture of what DERs at PCE means and why we're really looking forward to expanding them in a material way, expanding deployments in a big way. So I'm going to pause there. Before we get to community members' reports. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Excellent report.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions, comments? No, this is just such another example of great innovative program. I want to make sure that we have really good communication out to our staffs and to our sustainability people at all of our cities. So please, if you aren't comfortable or you're worried, you can always rely on our staff to meet with your sustainability team and help push some of these programs out and get people to think about them. I know, for example, we have a big brand new all-electric community center with solar but no backup batteries. So we've had to basically sit there with a gas-powered generator in the event that something goes down. So to be able to get rid of that, the backup battery, right on. So, yes, Carlos, Director Romero.
Just a quick question about the virtual power plants and controllable loads, which, I mean, clearly, I'm not quite sure how many of us actually have the appliances that indeed you can control. And so that you can dial down when it's hot, you can, whatever, and this is from afar, obviously. It's what if any, and I'm on here, but is there some thought about how we try to bring a controllable load, virtual power plant program online as more and more people actually come on with the software within those particular elements to actually control the load at this point, right? We don't have that capacity, correct?
Well, we do in some respects. So for instance, one of the most common devices that enables a virtual power plant today is Nest thermostat. And so there are tens of thousands of Nest thermostats and Ecobees and Honeywells all throughout our service territory. And many of those are indeed contributing to a virtual power plant in our service territory. But there are limitations to that. And as you mentioned, not every customer has one of those. And that's only one small portion of the potential market for virtual power plants in our service territory. Our intention is to both deploy new equipment to customer locations and at the time of deployment, capture those customers into the virtual power plants that we have them enrolled right away, as opposed to deploying a bunch of equipment, not having a plan to control it in any way or influence its behavior, and then going back to customers and doing that second part after the fact. It's a very difficult proposition, and a lot of customers are not going to engage with that kind of stuff. So if you deploy a new water heater, for instance, and enroll that customer immediately into a demand response program, then they're far more likely to actually shift their water heating load heating their water in the middle of the day as opposed to in the middle of the evening than they would if you were to deploy it and then go back to them later. So that is a key tenet of our strategy.
And just, I'm thinking, to the extent that it turns out to be an opt-out as opposed to an opt-in, that is all appliances, like, you can opt out, but you have to do that affirmatively, as opposed to, the appliance itself is going to be just naturally, if you have a Nest, it'll be connecting to, and then you can, regulate it, as opposed to having appliances that have to get opted in.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think it depends on the device. I think that customers will have different preferences, for instance, around their space heating than they will around their electric vehicle, than they will around their battery storage device. So it really is case by case, and we definitely take that into consideration when we formulate strategies in terms of going to market to opting customers into these VPPs.
Question though, is it not true that at least in some cases, when a customer works with us to take advantage of a rebate or, a swap out of a gas appliance, that there's a clause that we have in the agreement that essentially says that we want the opportunity to use that for load modification. I remember it was language that Alejandro was working on, and it was to what you're talking about, Carlos, to basically precede the idea and have them sign off on it so that we don't have to go back later and enlist them.
Certainly, yeah, there's a mechanism where you can have customers opt in and then, or automatically opt in, and if they choose to opt out, because you no longer are getting the grid services revenue stream for that set of devices or that device, then, you know, their payment might go up more than it would if they were to remain opted in. So that's a very common program model for this kind of thing.
Anyone else? Any members of the public? Okay, please.
My name is Eduardo Pellegrini.
Eduardo?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead and give your public comment.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a resident of Melbourne. So I'm a big fan of everything that Peter is talking about and of DERs. One of the topics that is commonly being debated is what's the value of DERs to the grid. And one challenge is that detail are not particularly interested in presenting that data like the IOUs, but it seems to me that the CCA, that you actually have this information, that we're in a position where we can tell how much of the electricity that's being distributed into our customers are coming from the distribution network. To some degree, you may have to do extra work in a description that says this much energy, this energy is coming from my neighbors. I've never seen a description like that. And with some work, you can provide them, and it would make discussions more grounded, and it would maybe clarify a bit some of the policy discussions that are happening nowadays everywhere. So that's it. Thank you.
So Eduardo, we were having a little difficulty hearing you, but filling the gap, I know what he's talking about here, filling the gap in, I'm just gonna posit that, you know, so the notion here is that Peninsula Clean Energy doesn't benefit from distribution infrastructure deferral with distributed energy resources or transmission deferral with DERs, which is true. We also are, you know, so that's kind of, I think the suggestion here is, you know, to continue engaging as we can in policy arenas that allow CCAs to play in the T&D deferral arena in the state, which I agree with.
And we're like to extend, if you would like to email me your comments, I will make sure to distribute the full comments to the board as well.
Right. If there are no other comments, then we'll close this item and move on to,
Sorry, just wanted to acknowledge Peter and Raphael and the whole team, but this guy right here has been buried for the last 6 months in Gov PV 1 and 2. And so I'm super excited that things are moving along and we have a new staffer, and so Peter can now turn to this work. So we look forward to hearing you. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to committee committee member reports, but I'm gonna just kick it off while everybody thinks about it, which is that it is time for, believe it or not, Sean's annual review. So I have appointed a committee of Director DeGolia, Director Alves, and our vice chair and me. So our two past chairs and us, Dave, you can join it if you'd like, but I knew you're really busy, so I didn't want to bother you. So we have laid out a rubric, and our CEO will be developing a review of the past goals, what we've achieved, where we still have work to do, where everything kind of is on the organization. We'll have a little rubric, do some evaluation, and this committee will come back with a review and recommendation. We will hold a closed session at the end of the June meeting to discuss it and make a decision on, you know, what the next year is gonna look like. Does that work for everyone, or does anyone have any thoughts or comments on that? If anyone's dying to be on the committee, I'm certainly happy to help, but I'm trying to keep it a little bit small, just so it's fungible, like we can all get together pretty easily. If there's not any other comment, then that will be the process, and we will have to put the closed session on at the end of the meeting. So just, you know, we're loaded up a little bit in June, in May and June, so that we can take the break in July. To get on session with everyone else, let everybody go on vacation and have our staff have a little break as well. So that's where we lie on all of this, and so it'll be at the end of the meeting, which means it could take a little longer. And I want to make sure just we have a quorum, that's all. So if anyone has to leave early, let me know and we'll make sure we work that out. But that's why we're going to move to the end, so that Nellie and Brianna do not lose their minds before we even start the meeting. That's it. That's all I have. Does anyone else have any other committee reports or city reports? Okay, great. Well, then meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Did it.